Good evening, everyone. Are you ready to improve your relationships? No matter what relationship it is, there's ways we can improve them. I have a funny story for you tonight on communication. I'm going to be continuing to read from this beautiful, beautiful little book called How to Love by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I'm going to be talking about this Saturday. You have an opportunity to join myself and a group of other people talking about relationships and how to improve them. This came from the requests. I've had requests, people reaching out to improve their relationships. And in the midst of everything that we're doing, all the striving and all the things that we're doing out there, it's our relationships that can be left unchecked. You know, if it's like a plant, if it's like a garden, if you were, it's a great metaphor for relationships. Sometimes we leave the garden and we don't tend to the garden, and the garden sits there, and maybe the garden needs some care. And if your relationships need some care, are you willing to take a step and attend and have some fun in the process? I mean, we definitely want to have some fun in the process as we're doing this. Let me give a sound check here to make sure our sound is good, and so that we can press on and cover the content tonight. So relationships. We've been talking about some of the challenges in relationships. Last night, talked about trust, talked about communication's a big factor in our relationships. That's the obvious things that come up over and over again. Emotional intelligence is another big theme today, and we hear people mention those terms. I often wonder how much work we do in that area. I know for me in my professional career and my relationships, I had no choice. Well, we always have a choice. I chose to improve those areas. I chose to forgive. I chose time and time again, and it wasn't smooth. It wasn't easy. I felt disconnected. I felt sometimes there's no hope in these relationships, but I guess it's in those moments that really push us to do better. We have the choice to do better if we choose. But let's talk about communications here. I got a really funny story. This was an old Zig Ziglar was great for telling stories. So here's a great one for you. A woman meets with an attorney and says, "I want a divorce from my husband." Okay, the attorney responds, let me start with a few questions. Like what? She says, "Well, do you have any grounds?" She says, "Yes, we have about 5 acres in the country." No, I mean, do you have a garage? No, but we have a nice wide carport and a storage shed. Attorney's like, "Wait a second. Let me ask this a different way. Do you have any complaints about him?" Like what? "Well, does he beat you up?" "No, I'm up at least an hour before him every day." "Well, what about your role here? Do you ever wake up grouchy?" "No, if he's in a bad mood, I just let him sleep." Exasperated, the attorney finally asks, "What exactly do you want a divorce? Why do you want to get a divorce?" "Well," she replies, "the guy just can't communicate." Boom, boom, ching. I thought that was a great one. I have another one here too. Let me see if I can. Where is it? This one's funny, a little different, but I'll share this because I like this one too. A man checked into a hotel. There was a computer in his room, so he decided to send an email to his wife. He accidentally typed in the wrong email address, and without realizing it, he sent the mail to a widow who had just returned from her husband's funeral. The widow decided to check her email, expecting to hear from relatives and friends. After reading the email, she fainted. Her son rushed into the room, found his mother on the floor, and saw the email, which read, "To my loving wife, I know you are surprised to hear from me. They have computers here, and we are allowed to send emails to loved ones. I've just checked in. How are you and the kids? The place is really nice, but I'm lonely here. I've made necessary arrangements for your arrival tomorrow. Expecting you, darling. I can't wait to see you. But there you go. There's another funny one for you. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to dive in. And by the way, I'm always invite you to type in what your relationship challenges are, what your relationship challenges are. And feel free to do that, because Saturday, we're going to be going in deeper. Saturday, if you really want to improve your relationships, you want to become a better communicator, you want to improve your emotional intelligence, you simply just want to show up better because maybe there's a challenging person in your life. How many of you have a challenging person in your life? It's probably everybody, right? I mean, I would venture to say most of us, if not all of us, have a challenging person in our lives. So what if you could learn to communicate better to that person? I'm going to drop the link in here for Saturday. I would absolutely love for you to join us. I think you're going to get I know you're going to get a lot of value from it. And let me share with you, one of the things I'm going to be talking about here is from this book. I've been reading from it. It's called How to Love. Thich Nhat Hanh just passed on at 95, an incredible Vietnamese man who was a Buddhist monk and as well as a peacemaker, was exiled from his country for 39 years during the Vietnam War, which my dad served in. So it was really interesting that he stood up against the war and anyway was exiled from his country. I'm going to grab a sip of some hot tea here. And I want to welcome you in. I'm going to read this. There's 6 mantras in here as far as communications go. And I'll tell you, if you're in a relationship, intimate relationship, these are really powerful. But even in any relationship, they can be really, really powerful. I read the first 2 the past couple nights. The one was, I'm here for you. Just simply saying, I'm here for you with no preparation for response. Like when someone's going through a tough time, imagine if you could just say, I'm here for you. And just shut your mouth. Like imagine that. I mean, it sounds simple, but there's the deep and the profound reflect in the simple. And a simple phrase, I'm here for you. That was the first mantra. Second mantra last night was, I know you are there and I am happy. That would be a response. So if somebody is expressing their presence and they're not preparing a response, just simply saying, I know you are there and I am happy is a great response. And then we also shared, I know you are suffering last night. Actually, gosh, this is like the 4th night now, I think, right? So just letting somebody know that you know that they're suffering, if they're going through a tough time. It's incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. Actually, that's the one I'm sharing tonight. I'm going to share 2 tonight. So let me read that now. Number 3 is, I know you are suffering. So this is if somebody is going through a tough time in a relationship. Now, that tough time could be because of something you did or something that has nothing to do with you, but just simply saying, I know you're suffering. So here's what he says about it. The third mantra is, I know you are suffering. This is why I am here for you. When you are mindful, you will notice when the person you love suffers. If we suffer, and if the person we love is not aware of our suffering, we will suffer even more. Just practice conscious breathing to produce your true presence. This has a lot to do with breath. And I know that may be disconnected for some of you, but even right now, if you can just find a deep breath as you're listening to me, what it does is it grounds you and brings you into the moment so you can receive what I'm sharing with you. I want you to at least observe what I'm sharing. I want you to decide, is this valuable for me? You don't have to receive this. You simply can observe it. Back to the story. Just practice conscious breathing to produce your true presence. Then sit close to the one you love and say, darling, I know you suffer. I love how he adds the word darling in there. It's so endearing. It's like a very endearing. And this is obviously someone who doesn't, the English language is not his first language, but I love how he uses that word darling. That is why I am here for you. Your presence in and of itself will already relieve some of her or his suffering. No matter how old or young you are, you can do this. Really love that. And I love the fact that these are very simplistic in nature. And I don't want to simplify the simplicity of these, if that makes sense. What I want to exaggerate here, put an exclamation point on or highlight, it's the energy behind what you're saying. It's the iceberg that's below the water. It's how you show up and realizing you don't need to say a lot of words. That awareness and that understanding is a form of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is not primarily the words you say. Emotional intelligence is that it's knowing how to show up, knowing how to transmute emotion into what that moment requires with said person. Very powerful. And I'm going to share this other one here because just because I want to. How about that? Do you care? Like, I'm going to share it no matter whether you like it or not. No. I really know you're going to get a lot from this, and I'll see if I can muster up another joke here for you too. All right. In stillness and silence comes the answers come. With deep listening and loving speech. And I love, Mandy, how you're accentuating what we're talking about here. Mindfulness is key to communication. All right. Number four. The fourth mantra is the one you can practice for yourself. This is a tough one. This is probably the toughest one. And I even think in the video we're going to share that Mandy had sent me with the interview with Oprah. I'm going to share this on Saturday. I think he even states this is the toughest one. Says, I am suffering. I am suffering. And so when you're going through a tough time, and even if the person that you're with is causing you discontent, a form of suffering, to be able to say, I am suffering. Think about that for a moment. And let me read this and I'm going to come back to it. The fourth mantra is the one you can practice when you yourself suffer. Darling, I am suffering. Please help. There are only 6 words, but sometimes they can be difficult to say because of the pride in our hearts, especially if we believe that it was the person we love who caused our suffering. If it had been someone else, it wouldn't be so difficult. But because it was him, we feel deeply hurt. We want to go to our room and weep. And it may just be we want to isolate. But if we really love him, when we suffer like that, we have to ask for help. We must overcome our pride. This one is difficult, especially if, and I would say, I would say for women, I'm going to say it because women, in my experience, mostly want their man, their significant other, to detect their discontent and suffering and why they're suffering. They want to know, because in their minds, if my man understands I'm suffering and that he did something, it's an expression of love. So when you're not getting that, that's where the pride comes in. And it can be very difficult to say, I'm suffering, please help me. Now, what I want to point out, what's not said is, I'm suffering, you idiot. Right? Like, that's not here, just so you know. It doesn't say, I'm suffering, you idiot, fix it. Now, we may want to say that, right? We may want to say, how do you not get it? You did it. You caused it. Fix it. Think about the emotional charge that can happen when in a relationship and somebody wanting that person to get the hint. Very important, very simple, very profound, easy to understand, more difficult in application for sure. Are you feeling me on this? This is deep, profound stuff. I didn't write it. I'm simply sharing it, and I'm sharing my reflection on it, having been in these situations many times, having been the person who, I actually, typically in my situations, I caused a lot of problems because I would go inward, especially if somebody was discontent, unhappy with me. Typically, they weren't communicating it. They wanted to take my legs out from under me because how do you not know? And that ruins a relationship. Both sides ruin. Like whatever I did, and then whatever the other person's doing, the response. And I love this in sports. I use this example. I'll probably use it on Saturday if somebody reminds me. Maybe Mandy will remind me. But I love this. In sports, there's the penalty. The penalty where they call somebody does something, and they get a penalty called. Well, what I found is that typically, especially in basketball, there'll be a player instigating a player, like poking them, grabbing the shirt, you know what I mean? And just like trying to get that, evoke something. Here's what happens. The person finally gets provoked and they respond. And typically 9 times out of 10, the referee, the umpire, whatever, they don't see the first transgression of the instigator. They more often than not see the responder, and the responder gets the penalty. And I think there's such a lesson there for us in that, it's not the person that does us wrong. It's what we do with it. Are we accelerating and responding to hurt, or are we communicating? Now in sports, it's different because there's a strategy there for that. But in human relationships, when somebody's doing us wrong, are we retaliating? Because that second one could be worse. It's going to leave that right there. Let's see. Amanda, you shared some really good things here. Let me see. There's no room for egotistical pride in universal alignment. Men are not mind readers. No one is. It's best to speak up and say how you feel. This is I think this comes with maturity. And I shouldn't say that. I don't want to say it comes with time. It comes with experience and maturity that is actualized through experience and through self-awareness, not just repeat. We typically live on repeat in relationships. And I'm going to share with you why. And I'll talk more about this on Saturday. Let's see. That's the mirror. And what happens is how we use this mirror is really important to our growth. typically what we do is when a relationship goes aside, we pull out the mirror and we go, look what you did. Look at you. You hurt me. You messed up. You did that. You did this. You did that. But what we really need to do is go, flip it around. What did I do? How can I learn? How can I grow? And then when we look in the mirror, that's where we grow. And I found that that's the most difficult thing for us to do in human relationships, especially when someone has done something to hurt us, to cause us suffering. Men are not mind readers. No one is. It's best to speak up and say how you feel. Maybe he didn't realize he hurt you. That happens all the time, all the time. And by the way, I know it seems like we're talking about couples, but this is relevant to all relationships. We can hurt each other in relationships. A miscommunication. Somebody assumes something, they don't make the direct connect, and they form an opinion about somebody. This is how, anyway, I'll just leave it right there. Okay. I know what you mean. It's netball back home. I played goal attack. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, with the sports. Nope, they see your response. Exactly. That's what I was talking about. And it's how we respond to life that brings a given result. I want to encourage you. Looks like most of you are going to get this on the playback. I want to encourage you to join us on Saturday. Take a step to improve your relationships. I put the quote, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of your relationships. And I am happy to say I've grown so much and I continue to grow. I do not have it down. But if you talk to my family, I think there's a quote that says charity begins in the home, right? You've heard that. And relationships begin in the home because they can be our toughest relationships at home. And if we can grow there and build emotional intelligence and really feel those awkward moments that happen and the uncomfortable states that we can find ourselves in, and then we show up better in the world. And I've seen this, and I like using the Jewish culture. They have their fathers and sons have a very strong bond, and they do really well. And I think that has a lot to do with success, being loved unconditionally, and all of those things that come into play. So anyway, I'm going to let you go. Have a great night, everyone. God bless. Make sure you click the link and join us, and we will go from there. Have a great night.